welcome Raymond Sanchez to Home is Where the Dark Is. Man, so great to see you. It's been a while since you were here tracking the Our Dying World record, the last one, and I wanted to first say on the podcast to you that I had a blast making that record with you, and I think it came out really good. And I just want you to know, I really enjoyed working with you as an artist because you're a great guitarist and even better person.
Man, coming from you, that means the world, because you made that whole experience just the best I've ever had. I mean, I haven't done a lot, but I've been around the block enough to know, the producers that are positive to the producers that, kind of bring a negative experience, and you are certainly just a great even ground. And, for anyone listening to it, if I, may plug you, as far as that, I mean, it's good to have someone proficient at what they do, but also creates an environment of which you can actually create. You know what I mean? Because that's from the performer's perspective, that's super important, because you can get all up into your emotions of oh man, I'm not doing this right, and or I have this idea, you were so lenient and so malleable to the situation, and you'll do it all I remember you were talking to me and then doing this, and just completely you were getting things done as you were consoling us throughout the whole thing, and I'm just look at it, you're like a seasoned jazz musician. It's crazy. I'm just watching you, look at this guy go. It's great.
Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
it means a lot. But yeah, dude, I'm sure people have told you how awesome you are at guitar, but there's something that really stands out about you to me, which is not only are you a great guitarist, but you have this very unique feel. I call it the X factor of guitar feel. That's what is, I call it in my own mind. I think that's the first time I've said it out loud, but I've noticed, especially in metal and rock, there is, when you hear it with a player, you just know they have it, and it's very, very rare, and it's only in a lot of the really experienced seasoned players that have it. But I've been to so many rock and metal shows in my life, and every once in a while I'll hear that guitarist knows what the fuck he's doing, not only with playing and feel, but with tone and amp selection and settings. Every time I've heard you, it's been you have a very tasteful sonic aesthetic to your amp tone, you're playing, and it all comes together in a very gelled, beautiful way. And I can't say that about a lot of people that, there's, seasoned pros big, the John Fives and the Slashes of the world. But I'm talking about people that, I've worked with in the Los Angeles metal community. There are a few that come to mind, but you are definitely one of them. And it's your tone is it soars. Your leads are just fucking on fire, and you have that excellent feel. And also your rhythm tone, it just cuts through, and it's really aggressive but very clear. And there's so many metal bands where I go to see their show, whether they're newer or even some more experienced veterans, and it's just once the guitars come in, it just sounds like a fucking beehive, just there's mids are scooped, gains all the way up, trebles all the way up, and it's just one of the one of my pet peeves, dude. And it's I'm so happy that you get it. You understand that that's not how you're supposed to fucking do it. And I just want you to know that, because I've very much so enjoyed that part of what you bring to the table in metal music. So,
and speechless, dude. And especially coming from you. I mean, because you've done so much. I mean, I'm staring at a wall of fantastic records. To my front left here, but I mean, dude, that means the world. And if anything, that I've done has, even for a moment, given a boost of serotonin, or made a bad day into a good day, I mean, that's it for me. So I mean, there's not enough thank yous in the world, so sincerely, thank you.
You're welcome. I absolutely mean it. And not only that, but what I also really like about you and what you bring to the music world is you're not afraid to stand on your own in especially a genre full of very strict visual norms, like with metal. You're one of the only metal guitarists that I know that isn't afraid to get up there and play with a Strat. And I think that says so much about you, because it's like, I am who I am. This is who I am. This is my tone. This is how I play, and you just own it. And I think that's awesome, because a lot of people, it seems like they do what they see, and they can't like form their own style or their own aesthetic, because they're just like, oh, well, my favorite band plays this guitar, so I'm going to play it. And they don't experiment with anything else or try to find their own way. They're just like, nope, I'm going to play this same exact guitar that whoever I admire plays, and that's it. And wear the same exact stuff and do the same exact stage motions. It's like, see that so much, but you're completely unique.
Thank you, man.
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. There's a lot of people that fall into that trap, and in some ways, I mean, I think I even did that, and with the bands that I was in, there was certainly a bit of that in the beginning. I mean, if you look at the first Throne video I was in was No Words. I think that was 2016 or 17. And, I'm playing this, jet black ESP, like Nurgle one with like a mirror pickguard and stuff like that. Mario had, Mario's the main guy in Exile, just for people listening. He had loaned that to me. And, as green as I was, I wanted to appease the Grand Collective. And it was, you wear black, you have this certain aesthetic to, fit into the mold, because the way I saw it was I was hired for a job. So, when you go to a job, you have a dress code, and, this is what you play, this is what you look. And then I think through time and space, the curtain was lifted, and you kind of saw things for what they really were. Because I remember growing up I grew up stomping grounds wise. I was born in Sacramento, but outside of that, about a half hour up the 80, there's a town called Dixon, which is at the time it was just a smattering of fields with like a gas station or two and like houses sprinkled in. So you have a very refined view of the world, because the closest city on a day with traffic was like 3 hours away, and that was San Francisco. And then before that, you hit Oakland and stuff like that. So you are very shut in, and everything around you is just flat. It's just green. And so when you are young and you hear these bands, and they're almost like mythical beings to you, because there's a guy to your left driving a tractor. And so you're and I remember. There was a lot of mystique about a lot of different things. And then I moved to the city, and when I was hired into Exile, our first show was like a sold out show with Death Angel, and I'm used to playing in backyards. And so I'm like, wow, this is like, I'm just, and so with that, there was a lot of that mystique still there. And then you kind of do it for a bit, and I'm sure you probably noticed, like you go to the venue, you meet the point man, you load in, and if you're lucky, you get a sound check, and then you find out that a lot of your favorite bands really are just people just like you, and they show up and they have a little Starbucks cup in their hand, and they're wearing shorts, and and they just got back from their hotel, and a lot of them work remotely, so they're doing that, and they have found their balance if they're lucky. And I was fortunate to have the leniency to explore. And when I kind of came into my own, and I stopped being so much of an angry, youth or whatever, because I think I joined the band when I was like 21 or 22. And being here, experiencing what you go through when you live in Los Angeles, which I'm sure we all have our own story as far as that goes. But I think a big reason why I drifted towards the Strat and everything is because I really calmed down as far as my worldview. Like when I lived back in Dixon, and I was a little shit kicking country kid, it was all Slayer and Death all the time. Like Death was my absolute holy grail. And when I joined the band, that was the mode. It was, I want to go as fast as possible, and I want to do this. But my first job was playing improv at a coffee shop.
No shit.
Yeah,
like
so
jazz?
sort of, yeah. So it was a coffee shop that molded into Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was a rib night, and so what they would do is they would have me in a corner, and they would have me with a little amp, and they were just like, okay, just make the ambiance. And so for 4 to 5 hours a night, I would go and I would just, with just me, I would go and play. It was just whatever came to mind. And so then you kind of form like, okay, this is what a chord progression is. And if you're the only one there, you have to fill a lot of space. So, your thumb has to hit the bass note, and then these have to do other things, and then you got to follow around. And if I was lucky, there was this really cool guy who was also a singer, Ted. He would be there, and then he would sing songs, and then he would give me spaces to fill as far as where to do leads. And so that was really the time where I cut my teeth, and I just had to fail and fail and fail over and over again until I was like, okay, this note works with this chord in this progression. This one very much does not, unless I resolve to this one. Then it works. And so, like, the poor people at the coffee shop would just hear me fail over and over again, and until eventually, I kind of got it right. Because while it was fun, that was also, and I didn't know it yet, but that was also me practicing. That was essentially me either providing my own jam track or jamming to a jam track that the guy next to me was doing. But then, every kid, especially young men, are mad at their dads for some point in their life, and I was certainly with that. And then I moved away, and then it's strange to say, but I think my reasoning for moving towards a more soulful thing was really because I missed my dad. And I remember I was sitting in a bar because I worked a night shift, and so my days or nights off, I would wake up at 8, and then I would go to sleep at like 6 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it was a very kind of solitary life. And I remember I was staying in a lockout actually on Linkersham in North Hollywood, I believe, and I went to a bar next to the Red Line. And I've never drank or anything like that, so I was having like a Coke, and I was sitting there and I was looking at the TV, and I think the Giants had just won the World Series. And I remember like, oh wow, my dad likes the Giants, and I apparently do too, because my dad's a Giants fan, so by proxy I must be. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh cool, I'm sure my dad's like really happy. And the same night there was a song that came on the radio, and I don't know who put it on, but I think it was "Don't Close Your Eyes" by a gentleman named Keith Whitley. And I heard it, and I was like, I think my dad has played this song before. And so that was the catalyst to, I haven't heard that song in a while. I should go and hear that song again. And I hear that, and I'm like, oh wow, Waylon Jennings. My mamas don't let your babies grow up to be, and like you go down the rabbit hole, and then you realize, oh wow, like I don't need like entrails ripped from a virgin's cunt from dawn to dusk. You know what I mean? Like there, you can kind of chill out with other things. And then eventually, I received my first American Stratocaster, and I couldn't put it down. And before that, it was all Flying V's all the time. I had a Dean, I had a Gibson, and then I had the Strat, and it was cool because you can sit down, you can play with it. Yeah, you played V's before. You don't have to put it between your legs and do that. So it became the sit on the couch and do whatever guitar. And then I was like, I can put a humbucker in this and see what's going on. So I was talking to Mario. I was like, hey, buddy, so Seymour Duncan makes a single routed humbucker, and so because we were color coded, it was a black on black or a white on white, and I was like, Sunburst, and he had Sunburst Jackson. He was like, yeah, that works. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a go, and it worked. And it was like looking at the pictures, I was like, wow, this doesn't match at all. I kind of like that. I kind of like that this doesn't at all match because you would go kind of like you said, you would go to metal shows, and what do people always have? And I'm not talking a mess because they're fantastic instruments, but everyone had an ESP, everyone had a Jackson, or they had some boutique thing.
Yeah.
They had like some custom made whatever. And I was the guy with the Strat, and there was some weird badge of honor with that. And it brought out some interesting things. I remember we played, I think it was a show with Wolves in the Throne Room and At the Gates, and one of the guys from one of the bands came up, and he had face paint on. And he said, hey, man, I like that Strat. My dad's a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, said this black metal dude in face paint. And I was like, that's so, I would have never guessed like that you would like even know who that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was cool because every now and then you'd like, you get a kind of wallflower who you would seemingly not do that, and then they come up and it would be a conversation.
I think a lot of people that, a lot of the metalheads that are wearing corpse paint or some kind of makeup, I think most, people that they have this image of like, oh, I would never think that you would be into Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think most of those people like do have all kinds of vast genre influences. It's just, yeah, like when you put on that certain image, like we talked about before, it's like the image is like, I am subscribing to one thing, but that doesn't really define the person behind the makeup, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just from my experience. But I think, I mean, another part of what I kind of struggle with in the genre of metal is I also went through a similar thing where like I was like really hard into the persona, like the darkness, the makeup, the need to look as hard as possible or whatever. And then like, as I get older, slowly over the years, I'm just like, but that's not who I am, So I think a lot of people, they put on that image, right? But that's what it is. It's a show. It's not always that person's lifestyle, right? So I think it's cool that, someone at a show you were playing, like come up to you and be like, hey, that's a sick Strat, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like, I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? Because it just shows that, yeah, just because we put on this image, that doesn't necessarily mean that's who we are and how we live our life 24/7. Of
course, yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And I remember there was a very clear moments where I kind of decided like, okay, we're gonna grab both reins here, and we're gonna take this home, because Safe Inside was the first record, and if you hear that. There's a lot of really shreddy stuff. There's a lot of like the end of the era of that young man who just wants to go fast. And then there's little smatterings of, okay, like, there's something else kind of poking through. And then it came time to write Illusion of Control. And that's the second Exile record that I was on. And we're like, okay, we're gonna write this, and this is kind of what's going down. I was living at 2112 West Victory Boulevard in Burbank, so I would go to work, I'd walk home, and then I would go write. And I had an experiment because I still listen to metal. I listen to metal every day. Like Decapitated is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. And of all eras. I mean, from Winds to The Negation to Nihility to Organic Hallucinosis. Organic Hallucinosis is probably, if I had to listen to one death metal record or extreme musical record before I died, cover to cover, that would be it, bar none. But I was at a time in my life where I was calming down a lot, and the not the want, but the need for it just wasn't there anymore. I still wanted it. I would go and I got into carpentry and stuff like that around the house and whatnot. And so it would start out as like, oh, you're gonna play A Skeletal Domain by Cannibal Corpse.
That's one of my favorite Cannibal albums because
Me too.
Mark Lewis produced it. That's why.
It is fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Like that like it's sonically, that one is probably one of my favorites. Yeah.
I use that for mix referencing all the time because it's just so fucking huge and massive, and like just it's such a satisfying album.
Oh
it's
man,
so good.
it's so cool because like what he did with like such an extreme sonic mashup is like he made it so refined, but like he had that sweet spot of like it's not so refined where it's like overproduced, but like he let enough of that ugliness and that grit in there, and I thought he did a fantastic job with the record. Funeral Cremation, by the way, is one of my favorite guitar riffs of all time. That is just a devastating guitar riff. Anyway, so with can't say enough about that record, but what I found myself listening to, and part of it was my job because, you know, you can't listen to Funeral Cremation when you're in people's houses. I move furniture for a living. And so, you know, I got a promotion. I was, you know, going and, you know, being more of a responsible adult and things like that. And so a lot of what I would play at work, because you're working anywhere from 8 to 14 hours a day. And a lot of what I played at work was a lot on the calmer side. And I noticed like people on lap steels in the background or like saxophonists. Like I was listening to other instruments and kind of learning from their point of view because I've played like I'm not a lap steel player, but I've sat on a lap steel and thought like, wow, their scope, their vision of how they perceive the notes that we see is completely different. You know, because like I see, you know, the notes of a guitar. And that's one way of seeing it. But if you have a bass, it's like, well, no, now you only have this. And if you have a lap steel, if you have a banjo, it's like, okay, well, now it's flipped. And so your means of perception are completely off kilter. And there was something about that really, really intrigued me. And so I started listening to saxophonists. I started listening to one of my favorite types of music to listen to in any sense. If you give me an old man on a porch with an acoustic guitar that's slightly out of tune and he's just singing about his life, that's my favorite thing. So Mississippi John Hurt, Blind Lemon Jefferson, I mean, Buddy Guy, I started listening to all those because I thought, okay, you have an opportunity here to make some sort of mark, right? And I involved myself into listening to what was going on at the time. And so I actually wrote it down. I was like, okay, so here's what you hear. This is what you hear a lot of. You hear a lot of sweep arpeggios. You hear a lot of like like that sort of thing. You hear people trying to play as fast as possible. And for their mechanism, that's what works, and that's great. So now you have the opportunity to create something else. So this is what you hear a lot of. Don't do that. Don't do any of that. And so with that in mind, when I was writing, a lot of what I wrote on the clean channel of an amp. And so, because Mario, even things as they are now, like Mario is one of my favorite guitar players to collaborate with because he has the gift of not knowing theoretically what he is doing. And so that opens and kicks down many walls because he's not confined to like, oh, well, it has to be in this key because the Aeolian mode and the low green, like he doesn't have to deal with any of that. So he just follows his ear, he follows his heart, and then what comes out comes out. And that was always my favorite part about writing with him because I never knew what he was going to do. And there was stuff like musically where I would be writing on paper and I was just like, this doesn't make any musical sense. Let's go. And so that was kind of the fun thing. And so a lot of what he wrote, I was like, okay. And then I would record it on my phone. I would record like, I don't know if he knows this, but like I would record his parts as just like a chord. Because, you know, if you have a 4-bar stanza, you know, and, you know, a lot of it's like, you know, there's 16th notes here, and then you have this choppy 8-note part. I just did a chord. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And then I would listen to it, and I would listen to the chord for what it was and what it was saying and what it came from and what it was going to lead to. And so I would sit, and I would go, and I would just pick out, like, what notes resonated. Like even if it was just like 1, 2, 3, and I figure, okay, so these notes work. And there was also things where it's like, okay, this note works, and this note works in a way, but it works better if I resolve to this. And so then it's like, okay, you're building from the ground up. And so you have, okay, I have one note per beat. Okay, let's add this. Let's slide into here. And before you know it, it's like, okay, now you have a lead. And one thing I like to do, and I hope that this translated with you with the Our Dying World record, is I don't like to just have one idea. Because going into a studio, and this probably comes from like my how'd you put it? This probably comes from my time as a session guy. You have to be malleable to whatever is going on. You know, your ego completely has to take a backseat. You're not there for you. You're there to serve a grand collective.
Mm-hmm.
And so you figure, okay, the wrong thing to do would be to go, no, this is my lead and it has to go like this. The right thing to do, especially when you're working with someone who's manning the board like you have to have a few ideas. And I would like to go and be like, okay, here's idea 1, here's idea 2, here's idea 3. And then you as the producer, you're the sounding board because you're the guy who's controlling it. So it's like, okay, in your opinion, what do you think fits this song the best, right? Because, you know, we are giving that I guess, creative leverage and creative trust really to you. Because you're not just there to push buttons. Like, you know, if you're a producer,
Right.
you're there to produce.
Right.
And so Jeremy Kroll was the gentleman who did that. And so I would have a few different ideas and I would go and, you know, say like, you know, what do you think fits best? And there was one, I think it was a song, Edge of the Unknown. The lead is actually backwards. I remember I recorded it and he listened to it. He chopped it. I watched him do it. He chopped it in half. He took the back half to the front and then the front half to the back. And then I listened to it and he was like, that's the way it should go. I remember that, like, it was the weirdest thing because like it in my head, you know, of course, you know, you have some sort of ego to it. It's like, that's weird. And then you kind of sit with it. You're like, no, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Cause the note that I ended on or started on sounded better at the end because of what came after it.
Totally.
So it was like, okay, yeah, this is how it should go. So there was a lot of that. And I didn't listen to metal at all when writing it. And I listened to a lot of old chicken pickers like James Burton and Brent Mason and Brad Paisley and things like that. And I found a lot of really cool ideas. And when I was done, I was like, okay, let's add distortion to it. And throw it into, what do you have, EVH or, you know, Rev or something like that. And it's like, we have metal, sort of, kind of, not really. But like, you know, yeah. And then you bring it in. And then I was just talking with my girlfriend about this in the car. And you know, there would be times where they'd have to be like, hey, buddy, this isn't a blues quartet. You're in a metal band. You gotta lean off of that whole Stevie Ray style thing, and they would have to like rein me back and be like, can you put a 16th note thing here, just because can you go faster just a little bit, and that's good because, like, you know, I don't want to stray too far off course to where, like, you know, it's metal 16th notes, blast beats, and then like you don't want to do that too much. You want to fit into what everything is doing.
Yeah, the healthy balance of it, because I totally agree with what you said about, I find in my personal songwriting and with work I've done with various artists, I feel like the strongest ideas and the strongest song structures and arrangements, they're born from outside influences, like completely different genres. Like, I feel like you can be more creative and you come up with more interesting arrangements, chord structures, leads, riffs, whatever, if you just stop listening to, say you're a metal band, just like you said, don't listen to metal for like months before you write your album, or listen to like classical or just something different, like something to take you out of that box, because it's so easy to like get stuck in that box when you're writing and you're recording and you're rehearsing metal all the time and you're listening to it too much. It's like, it's so easy to just, because whether we like to admit it or not, like whatever we're consuming, gets stuck in our psyche, right? So if we're listening to Cannibal Corpse all week, then we go to write a song, even no matter how hard we try not to sound like Cannibal Corpse, like if you aren't careful, like some of that will slip in when you're writing riffs. So I think it's a great practice to maybe not listen to music at all or listen to something completely different and then go write those metal tunes. And then you'll be like, wow, like this is so different. This is so unique because I haven't been slamming myself with like the top metal playlist on Spotify all week. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I totally subscribe to that idea for sure.
How often, like when in your writing process, do you just not listen to music?
I really don't listen to music because I work on it so much. And when I listen to, when I'm in the car, I'm listening to podcasts or like.
I remember, you're like me. You like podcasts. What are you doing now? Is
podcast wise?
Yeah.
I like to listen to, okay, there's a few. There's some nerdy audio ones, Working Class Audio, Secret Sonics. There's one called Music Production Podcast. There's a few other ones. Also, I like murder mystery podcasts. There's one called Killer Psyche.
Cool.
I love Killer Psyche. There's some that are like more psychological trauma podcasts. There's one called This Is Actually Happening, which is just like people telling their stories about ridiculous shit they've been through in their life, like trauma and all kinds of shit. There's one called Something Was Wrong. What else do I like? There's one called The Jordan Harbinger Show, which is just like really, I get like super nerdy. There's one called The Huberman Labs Podcast, which is
love
like
him.
Super, yeah.
Oh man, I love him, man. He's awesome.
So I have and then I listen to funny ones like Your Mom's House and Steve-O's
Crusher
podcast.
and nice. Okay, cool.
So it's like a vast selection of whatever I'm in the mood for that day. But Joe Rogan, of course, that's what it all started with for me. But yeah, man, because like I'm in the studio like getting hammered with fucking kicks and snares and guitars all day. So it's like when I go home, I'm not really crazy about wanting to listen to metal, but maybe on the weekend I like to check out the new Spotify and I listen on Tidal, but I like to check out the new releases. So I'll go and listen to all the new singles and pick through some albums just to see what's new and popular and fresh. So I like to stay relevant with that, just so at least I know what's out. But yeah, I don't really find myself listening to as much music these days as I used to when I was in my teens and whatnot, when I was first discovering music. But I'll just go down a rabbit hole and I'll be like, what's a genre I haven't listened to ever? And I'll just go on Tidal and be like, world Celtic jazz. I don't know. I'll just find something random that I've never heard before. And then I'll like find a song from that album I like, and then I'll find another similar artist just to like, cleanse the palate, and try something new. But yeah, man, I think as an artist, songwriting is just, I think as you grow as an artist and a person, and as you experience different things in life, like I feel your songwriting methods can change over time. And but yeah, everything you said before, I can completely resonate with, like songwriting wise, and just taking different influences. Just because you're in a metal band doesn't mean you have to only listen to metal or only try to replicate your favorite metal band riffs. Like you can do whatever you want, really. Like there's no rules. That's what's so awesome about it.
Yeah. Especially in metal, man. Like it's just it's completely boundaryless.
Yeah, totally. So you came from Dixon, you came to Los Angeles. What year did you come here again?
I believe 2014 is when I landed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been here almost 10 years.
Off and on, yeah.
Off and on. Just for the listeners, and maybe for people that are just starting in a metal band or have been in a metal band for a long time and starting to play shows, like you played a lot of shows in Los Angeles. You've done some touring. You played in Europe, correct? Yeah, you went over to Europe. Mm-hmm. So what has been your like takeaway as like an independent artist, like, in the trenches, playing shows? And I mean, what has been like your biggest, like, maybe not aha moment, but what was kind of the transition for you that made you realize like, this is what I really want to do with my life, and to continue and to really like put the work in? Because I know it's not for everybody. Like a lot of people, once they get into it, they realize, oh, this is not what I thought it was. And I don't think I'm cut out for this. And you put in, 10 years of your life into these two projects, and I'm sure there's others I don't know about. But what has been like your main takeaway from your experiences in Los Angeles and in the music industry and grinding away in the metal scene?
It's not about you. I'm proud to say that I looked back and I was in service to the audience. And if you can manage to keep your head in the midst of all that comes toward you, then I think that you've won. And I think for me, I knew for a fact, or at least I had a pretty good idea that like I'm not going to have a mansion with 5 cars in the driveway. You know what I mean? Like that was never the point. I remember what it was like to play a song and then have someone come up to the little coffee shop that I was at and like say, hey, my wife loved that song, and like hearing you play that tonight reminded me of her, and like the music for me has always been about connection because I'm not talented or anything. I've had to work really hard and fail at a lot of what now, like if I'm good at anything, if I'm wise at all, it's only because I've been a fucking idiot. So, but that's necessary though. And that's a good takeaway too. Like dare to fail. Like you are going to mess up. There is going to be times where your string is going to break, your fuse is going to fall out of your amp. Enjoy those times. Those are just as important as the times when, the doors open and there was more people standing outside than you thought, and now they're in the room and they're watching you. Be grateful for anything that ails you. Like I can look back, I'm grateful for every negative that I've ever experienced. The last post that I put out on Instagram when I had it was how lucky am I to have a pain so great because I love something so much. Most people never dare to love anything that much. And I don't want to tell other people how to live, but like what I could say is if I can go back and tell myself anything, it would be you are going to trip and you're going to get back up to, because what you do is important, because this is not to serve your own ego. You are going to provide levity and release for the single mom, for the guy who just worked a double shift, for the old couple that bonds over the love of music. Those people, those are the ones that you're serving. You're going to serve the guy whose girl just left him, who's going through a divorce. You're going to serve the woman who just got married and is just looking to have a good night on the town. So whatever they are feeling, you now have the gift, the privilege, the luxury of providing a release for that person. That is your job. And whatever you do, never lose sight of that, because if even for a moment you go and think, oh wow, what a great opportunity for me. If there's a for me at the end of the sentence, then you're starting to lose track of what it really matters.
Absolutely. Totally agree there. And I think a lot of people forget that, especially in music. Because like you said, it's, I want to go play this show because I've always wanted to play at this venue, or I want to play in front of X amount of people, and I want to play this festival, and I want to do this tour because I want to. But what you're saying is it's about serving the listeners, serving the fans, and giving them that experience, regardless if there's 10 or 10,000 people in the audience. You still put in 110%, and that's beautiful, man. And I think a lot of people forget about that. They forget that, look, you're touching other people's lives more than you know, just because, like I said, even if you're playing in front of 10 people, like maybe one of those people just went through something really traumatic in their life, and this show is like bringing them up, making them feel better, and it's doing something awesome for them. So yeah, I love that, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're thrown into Exile and then Our Dying World, and recently you've made a major change in your life. And can you just tell us a little bit about, you know, this transition and how you're feeling about it and what you're looking to do next?
Of course. Well, it wasn't my choice, and I think the beginning of just for context. So I think the beginning of COVID, I think like 2019, 2020, I had done a guest spot on Our Dying World's first EP. I believe it was called Expedition, and that's when I first met Tom Tierney. I think it was at the name of the studio escapes me, but the guy was really nice, and I had gone in there with the white Dean V, and I had just laid down a guest spot. Tom had reached me on Facebook, and I was fortunate enough to have him like it so much because again, like, you know, I'm going in there to serve his collective. You know, like I want to, you know, do something that makes him look good, or I get sound good because you can't see music, but English is hard, so he was kind enough to say like, hey, like, you know, like if you want the spot in the group, like it's yours. But I was already in Exile, and I try to manage my time in a way that, you know, like I don't want to say yes to you but then fail you in the end. So like, you know, out of respect for your time, which is valuable, you know, I'm going to go ahead and respectfully decline. Time goes on. Exile loses their drummer, good buddy of mine, who I'm also in a band with currently, Scott Shelko. That band is called Stygian, by the way, and that's one that has always kind of been there as well. Great people, but so he exits, and we need a drummer, and so I see Tom again. I run into him while I was helping move a friend. Is like, yeah, man, you know, you guys ever need, you know, guy behind the skins, you know, let me know. And so it clicks in my head, like, Tom, you play drums, you know, this kind of rah metal music and stuff like that. And so I vouched for him. I was like, hey, there's this guy, Tom Tierney, who's like, you know, he's fucking sick. And so we go and try out, and there was a song called The Ronde, which always has thrown off any person that we've ever, you know, showed it to, because it's got this weird, like, there's this section where like it ends on an and, like an and of 5 or something like that. And that one always, like, even explaining it is just weird. So that was the one, and we were just like, oh fuck, like people just aren't gonna get this. And Tom sure as shit goes, oh, like this? And we're like, oh, okay. Like, fuck us, I guess. So like, kidding, but no. So he gets it, and so I'm telling Mario, I'm like, yo, this is a dude. Like, he's a solid dude. He's nice. Like, yeah, he even has the audacity to be good looking. Fuck this guy. So so he gets a spot, and I got the gift of, like, you know, asking Tom, like, hey, like, do you want to be in Thrown in Exile? And that was really good. And so time goes on, and it's a good fit, you know. And we move into his studio, and, you know, we all start chipping in on things, and everything seems to go perfect. And so before that, part of the thing was, you know, well, Our Dying World is still a thing. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, type thing. So it's a crossover. It's like, so we're in both bands. It's impossible to double book ourselves. Let's do this. And so I joined Our Dying World. I learned the Expedition songs. We start writing more. So now it's cool, because now I'm in like 3, and I'm, you know, it's like, okay, we're kicking with gas now. Let's go. And so there's the trials and tribulations of, you know, okay, if you write a riff, which band does it go to? Does it go here? Does it go there? It's like, okay, well, this is more Bodom-esque, and, you have a keyboardist with this band, so it's like, anything widdly-wah, it's probably going to go over here. And then more soulful, probably going to go over there. Let's see, so 22, 20, 21, 22, and time goes on, and Henry was the first vocalist that I interacted with in Exile. He exited. And then it was Joey Dallo, who's a dear friend of mine to this day. He exited. And so Tom was there for his exit. And I love Joey. And so for me, whenever people exit, it was even hard when Scott exited. It was really hard when Joey exited, because you grow attached to people who you're creatively involved with. It's a form of, relationship and everything.
Right.
And there was a gentleman named Edwin Harutonian who I got even closer to in a short amount of time. Like sort of like you and me. Like I feel like you and I just gelled, like, right off the bat. And same principle with Edwin. So it was a collective thing. Like, we all kind of decide, because we've always put everything to a vote. And I think at the time we just thought best, okay, it's probably best, if Joey isn't doing this. Enter Edwin. Edwin is an immensely, staggeringly capable vocalist, and he shoots us all to new heights. And we go to Europe with him, and create not creative, but like, I think personal tensions kind of arise. I won't say how or anything like that, but we all were made to see, I think, the uglier side of each other on that sort of thing. But the caveat was, it was like, we had never sounded like, I don't want to say better, but we've never sounded so comfortable. We've never sounded so confident, right? And there's a certain thing that happens, like, like when you have good songs but you're not confident, it doesn't really shine through. Like when you go and you're walking tall and you're like, we are going to fucking crush this place. Like when you have that like ferocity when you, like, there's a certain thing that kind of comes out. And man, like if I had to have one wish, it would be to play for my dad. It would be to play for my mom. And we went to Berkeley on the last night of the tour, and we played in this auditorium, and it was a packed house. And my dad and my mom, who haven't been in the same room for years, my aunts, my brothers, like I had that moment where I can look back and I can go like, I made it. Like I don't have a fancy car or a garage or anything like that, but like I wanted to show my dad and my mom, hey, those extra side jobs you took to make sure that I had a place to practice, that I had food on the table, that I had the guitar I wanted. Here you go.
Yeah.
It paid off.
I love that, man. It's a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then, so time goes on, and then I get a call from, the guys one day, like, hey, we're tired of Edwin. And I'm getting ready to move back. Like I'm quitting my job tomorrow, and I'm moving back across the state to be in this band. Or not to be in this band, but like to be more accessible to this band and to the other things that I'm in. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And again, we've always put it to a vote. I was the one yes. And so they're like, okay, well, let's call him. And so I'm immediately alarmed in more ways than one. And so I raise my hand and I'm like, okay, I think I should be the one to make the call. Like if this is what I'm outvoted on, then I should be the one to make the call. And I think it was like 2 days later, I balled up and I called him and I was like, hey dude, this is a situation. this isn't what I want. And we have a conversation, and there's a lot of warnings of, be careful of this person. And just like when Joey left, be careful of this person. Just like when Henry left, be careful of this person. And so now it's like, okay, this is the third time that I'm hearing like these warnings type thing. And so now that that's happening, I'm like, how do you expect me to take this seriously? Like, you had one lineup before me completely disbanded. I'm part of the second lineup, so that's singer number 2, number 3, number 4. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to move across the state away from my family, like at this point, it was like 8 years. I'm like, I missed my nieces growing up. I've missed anniversaries. I've had relationships die. I've missed funerals. I've missed weddings. Like, and you're going to just be like, oh, I'm just tired of this. And I'm like, I need some answers here. Like, what's going down? And so, I essentially on a phone call kind of make my grievances known. And then I hear that Evan, who is the original singer of Exile, may make a return. And I'm like, okay, now we have a story. This is cool. Like, this is really the only way that I can like have some sort of confidence in this. This is this is rad. And I've always liked Evan. Evan has always been a very just nice, well-meaning, very calm person.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Great guy. And so we get on a phone call, and I'm like, and Evan's in the practice room. This is before I moved, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna give this a go. And we have one show in Mexico, and it's like, okay, that's gonna be Evan's first run. And so now it's like I have to do this again, where it's like I get attached to somebody, now they leave, and then here's this new person who's just bright and shiny and full of purpose, and I have to go. I have to we got to do this again. And so, and this is where I'm gonna choose my words very carefully. It was very different with Evan compared to Edwin. The confidence that I once had was not necessarily there. And I made that known too, because they asked, and they're like, "How do you feel?" And I'm like, "It's different. Like this is going to be a bit rough. You know what I mean? Like the transition is like night and day." Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, apparently all we had to do was get Evan in front of a crowd, and then he just lit off like a rocket, jumping into a crowd. I was like, "Oh, okay, shit, look at this guy. Like he's doing the deal. Cool." And so backstage in, I think it was Tijuana, Mexico, we all kind of asked Evan to, be a part of it. And at this point, Mario and I have kind of a rift going between us. And him and I have always been very different people. We've always had the joke, like, I'm denim, he's leather. I'm pickup truck, he's sports car. Just as people, we're the exact opposites. But, and we've always kind of bickered. We've always kind of fought, but that's what brothers do. Like if I had a nickel for every time I wanted to wring my brother's neck, you know what I mean? Like it's that's just what you do, and that's with any relationship. Like, like there's just in the car today on the way over here, like, my girlfriend's sticking her tongue out at me. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, it's just, that's just what you do. But with Mario, there was always, I think my positives and negatives and his positives and negatives have been kind of at war with each other since the beginning. And now it's kind of coming to a head because I've lost a lot of confidence in this, and I'm here, like, I'm willing to make this work, but like, I need some time. And so what used to be jovial and going and joking and stuff like that, now we're fading away. And so he brings me to the side in Mexico, and he's like, dude, I just want you to know, like, I'm never going to give up on you. Like, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Thank you. And time goes on, and we're playing these shows, and the confidence is kind of coming back, but like, like people are missing this and we're missing this, and I'm just like we shouldn't be missing this. Like we shouldn't be. This shouldn't happen during like a live show, and it just goes on. The rift grows between Mario and I, and it doesn't really come back. And it comes to a head where, he sits me down and they're wondering, if I really want to do this anymore. And I start to get kind of upset because I think that I've sacrificed a pretty exorbitant amount for this. Like I don't know if I'll get into details, but like I have slept in concrete stairwells, and I slept under the pier in Santa Monica just to remain here, to be here, because I loved this so much. And now I'm being told we're not sure if you want this, when I'm living in a. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, were you homeless for a period of time?
I was, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so
sorry to hear that, man.
Oh no, and like that's where personal accountability comes in. Like I could have just left,
Yeah.
but I didn't, because I wanted to be here, and this is important to me. So, for what I love, like I'm gonna do anything. And
did they know that?
They did. There was one time, and Mario actually, like I had like no money, and I was scraping by, and Mario came, and I remember he got me a Whopper, and like they knew that I was in hard times and whatnot, but I said, like, use this as a metric to how truly dedicated I am to this, and I've never missed a show. I've never missed a shoot. I don't miss rehearsals generally. Like even there was one time where he booked a video shoot, and I had to, in a day, I think, get on a train at like really early in the morning, get off the train, do the video shoot, and then I had to go to the airport, sleep in the airport, fly back, and then do a shift.
Jeez.
So like, that, like, it is, I do not mess around. Like if I'm dedicated to something, that's it. Like you will not get rid of me unless you say, hey, you're not in this anymore. I'll get to that. So, so the rift between him and I grows, and then it comes to pass that now there's a rift between Tom and I, because Tom had warned me, hey, dude, like I get, we've all told Mario, hey, you gotta go easy on Ray. Like you gotta figure out how he needs to be spoken to. And then it comes to pass, that old quote, like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And so then Tom pulls me aside. He's like, hey, man, there's got to be some kind of shit or get off the pot situation happening, because, like, this rift between you guys, it's starting to kind of bleed over and into everyone else. And granted, like, he's trying to be a good friend, and he's trying to look out for what he is now a part of, which I totally get. And so Tom goes on, and then there was an event where I was really sick, and so my girlfriend had come by to essentially nurse me back to health, because we had a double show, Our Dying World and Exile were playing with Abysmal Dawn at 1720, and so I had slept in because I just wanted to get all the rest I could. And the lockout that I was staying at, it only has one lock to the door, and so Tom had ended up showing up early, and the door's locked because I'm getting dressed, because I'm like just weirdly kind of getting my bearings, and Tom was going through some personal stuff which I won't disclose, and I think that kind of led to him being very upset that the door was locked with me inside and my girlfriend sitting on the couch, and that looks a certain way. And so now we get to the show, and him and I are very kind of rocky waters, and he just ends up kind of drawing a line somewhere, because he thinks he kind of has, like, he thinks he knows what he saw. which is like cool, fine, that's perfectly understandable. And then we have to go and play 2 sets. And so now, along with the fact that apparently Evan thinks that I'm not fond of him because of one reason or another, there was one time where I think he wanted to take just a mental health day, and I had reached out to him and I said, "Hey man, like, you doing good? Like, you doing all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm just, taking a mental health day." And we had a new song that we were playing, and so we were now only going to have like one practice with him. And so I just said, "Hey man, take the time you need, like totally cool. Just know we're here for you." Comes in the next practice, crushes it, all good. Play the song, goes off without a hitch. So that said, though, like, it started off one way, and I think through time and space, I think Evan, by one way or another, got through his head, okay, I don't think that I'm the most welcome here, and I probably could have done a bit better of remedying that, but I think for a time I just didn't know, because I'm trying to just be who I can be to make this work. So we go and funny enough, hair starts going away, so I start wearing a hat, right? And so now it's not that thing. Like, you're not doing that whole thing anymore. So now it's like, okay, you got to walk around, you got to jump on speakers, and like, you got to scream at people to have some sort of stage presence. You can't just stand there.
Wait, are those your own thoughts, or are those other people's thoughts to you, like asking you to do that?
Well, those are my own thoughts, but also, like, we've always been a very what would the word be? I guess vivacious live type of deal. Like, we're running all around in circles. Mario and I are doing the synchronized headbanging thing. Like, that's always kind of been our thing.
Yeah.
So now that kind of goes away. So I'm like trying to compensate for it, and they're saying, okay, like, we really need to go ahead on our outfits, like, because we're getting towards the big time now. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, like, I start wearing these goofy pants, and I start trying to look the part, because that was what the Grand Collective kind of decided. And I feel as though now, as far as then, like, now, Tom and I are at odds. Mario and I are at odds. It would seem that Evan and I are at odds. And then there's the bass player, who is just happy to be there, and he's innocent throughout this whole thing. And then we go to Milwaukee. And this is where the rubber really meets the road, because it's clear that things are weird. And then we arrived for a 3-day festival. We got there on the second day. And on the second day, they had all agreed that, like, we're going to go pass out flyers to just the people. We're not going to play. We're just going to go pass out flyers and just do the thing. And me with my own stuff, I'm like, I'm a world away from home, and this is kind of cool. I have an opportunity to just write and just exist, and just not, not be clouded by the ever expanding fuckery that is my anxiety and depression and my head. And so I tell our photographer friend and Evan, after kind of debating it for a bit, I was like, hey, like, I think I'm just going to stay back and just kind of do my thing. I'm going to create some content and just do that. And Evan goes, but today is supposed to, we're supposed to pass out flyers. And I go, yeah, I just think I just need a day. So I take a day. And everyone comes back, and it's really quiet. Like, it's really quiet. And so next day we go and play the show. Goes off without a hitch. It's fine. I'm going and, screaming at people and, like, like, spin around circles and stuff like that. And we fly back, and it's really, really weird. And then we get to the airport in Long Beach, and I go to the bathroom, and I come out, and everyone's gone. And I'm like, okay. And so I call Tom, and then Tom's like, oh yeah, everyone left. we honked after you to, see, like, do you want me to come back and get you? And I was like, okay, now I'm kind of seeing that this is odd. And I just go, no, I'm good. And so I busted back to the place, and then Mario calls a meeting for Thursday.
Wait a minute. Sorry to back up. They left you there like at the airport, like as your ride?
No. So, like we all kind of had our own means of transportation, but like there was no goodbye. There was no anything. And so I was like, yeah, okay, that's a statement, I think. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think Evan left early, so he just, he gave everyone a hug and stuff like that. But everyone else was just kind of doing their own thing. And on a previous talk that we had, when Mario, like, it almost came to blows. I had the grievance of like, how do I know that you don't have a replacement for me too? Like, how do I know that I am taken seriously in this? And everyone abound was saying, you are the guitarist thrown into exile. There is no replacing you. Like, you're not going anywhere. And that was the thing. Like, we never had a replacement for you. We never, like, that was never a thing. And I go, okay, I'm going to trust you on your merits that is true. Mario calls a meeting, and I go, okay, is this a Skype meeting or is this an in-person meeting? And he goes, I'd prefer this to be in person. And I go, interesting. And so Thursday comes, and if I'm sitting on a couch, there's 1, 2, 3 little stools. Evan doesn't show up. Mario, Tom, and Javi go. And Mario just opens up and says, I can't do this anymore. And so I'm looking at him, and I divulge like how I feel to my girlfriend, and she's like, this is what you do. Like, I don't want you to stop doing this. And so she's always been very, very supportive. So she's like, you got to fight for, your place in this, and, I want to make sure that, this does not stop for you. So I'm going in with kind of that mode of operations. But what happened is that there was no option given. And Mario just says, I've tried to be your friend. I've tried to do this and that, and it's just not working. And Tom takes the helm, and they start listing off like weird things. Like I at the ring out at the end of one of our shows, I jumped on the barricade and I gave my girlfriend a kiss as I was like holding the note. And they said, yeah, like a lot of people went and kind of like talked to us about that. They're like, what is that? And like, they pointed it out, like, dude, like, and he said that was really unprofessional and it makes us look bad. And I was like, that's okay. And so through this whole thing, I'm as silent can be. Cause I really just want to hear him talk. And so, and they said, yeah, at practice, you're on your phone too much, and it like you're attached to her at the hip, and like they're really kind of hammering in on my girlfriend, and I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, this isn't cool with me.
Yeah.
And they Tom blatantly said, thanks for the 9 years, but we don't trust you professionally. And I just kind of looked at him, and they said, do you have anything to say? And I just sat there and I was like, anything else? Like, is that it? And Tom goes, well, not quite. I mean, the offer to be in Our Dying World is still there, but they deserve an answer. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. I think I already know who my replacement is. And so in my head, I dismantle it like this. So let me get this straight. You're offering me to continue being in a band that I have helped you, that I've had a hand in building. You're offering me to be in a band I'm already in with not only my co-guitarist, who I'm pretty sure is going to replace me. So my replacement, as well as the guy who fired me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't say that, but in my head, I'm like, it's not really a choice. And he laughs and he goes, yeah, it is. Like, you chose to do the things that got you exiled, and No pun intended. And like, this is your choice. And I go, well, I guess that's gone too then. And he goes, okay. And Mario is just in shambles. Like, you can tell he really has some sort of reservation about this. Tom, on the other hand, is another thing he said that I'll never forget. He goes, this is my career and I've worked hard to be here. And again, I just looked at him, and they said, do you have anything to say? And I go, no, I don't. And so Tom is kind of quietly, he's like motioning to the guys, like, we should probably go. So Tom walks out of the room. Javi comes up and gives me a hug. Mario just completely falls apart. And I give him a hug, and I go, he says, like, I know that you probably hate me and you think that I wasted your time. And if you ever need anything, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I know you'll never forgive me for this. And he initially goes to shake my hand, and I stand up and I give him a hug. And I go, don't ever stop. Always do what you feel is best. If this is what you feel is best, then have no regrets about it. And say hi to your mom, say hi to grandma, say hi to Josh, and, say hi to your girl. She's done a lot for us too. And then tears in his eyes, he left. And so I start making the phone calls, and I take a picture of like my old jacket, and I just make a post, and then my phone just explodes. Like, people thought I died or something. Which was kind of heartwarming, because I thought, okay, people aren't really going to notice. And it was heartwarming to me because I think, people had let me know that I had made more of an impact than I thought I did. And so people are just like, what the fuck happened? And so my girl comes, and God bless her, man. She was just there throughout the entire thing. And not even a half hour later, I had texted, people probably know by now, I had texted Austin, who to this day, I will take a bullet for that kid. That kid is my blood. I said, tell me you got it. And he said, I just got off the phone with Mario. I got it. And so his position is like, he's been a fan of this band for like years. So he probably feels like bad. Like, he's even told me, he's like, I don't know what to do right now. And so I told him, don't you dare think that you haven't earned this. You deserve every bit of good that will ever come with this. And there is no one who I would rather have here. And so he's just, no, don't. It has to be you. Like, this is your thing. You deserve to be here. Hold on tight. Life's about to get real fucking weird. So just don't ever have a reservation for it. I want you here. You deserve to be here. And so that's that. They did like a copy paste post on like, the typical, like, it's with heavy hearts that, like Ray, not knowing like, hey, like, I just got fired. Like, this is not it wasn't my choice. So then you have a choice, right? Like, you have the smear campaign way, where you really kind of make yourself look bad because you think it'll make you feel better, but really it never does. Right.
Yeah.
Or you can be classy about it, and you just be like, hey, this happened. And it was all for you. And thank you for that. So I started with just like, hey, this happened, full post coming later. And I come from people where, men don't show their emotions really. And it's not part of our makeup. It's not because we don't want it to be. It's just we just don't know another way. So something drastic, like someone has to die in order for me to like do that. And God bless my girl, man. She provided me a safe place to fall apart for the next like few days. Like, she set aside all of her stuff and was just completely there for me. And like, I fucking I lost it, dude. Because in a way, like when they walked out of the room, like my friends died.
I hear you, man.
And
Absolutely.
And so I thought I told them, I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of every social media outlet I have. So don't think I blocked you. Like I will not exist there. And I had to have my girl help me. She's like, "Are you sure you want?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can't watch this."
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting thing of like, wow, I'm not going to exist. To like, there was a part of me of like, you're basically dead to the world now. Like you're killing yourself to people because there's going to be so much that you're going to miss. And then there was the other part and be like, there's going to be so much you're going to miss. Like it's like and I was excited about that. And so I did it. I had my girl look it up. Like, this is how you do it. I'm like, do it. And, made the post, kind of left it up for a few days. That way kind of people knew, like, hey, I'm not blocking you. Or I don't know if you can tell if people blocked you or they just don't exist. And that was it. And I haven't talked to Tom since. I haven't talked to Mario since. I talked to Austin a bit. I saw him. And same thing. He's such a well-mannered, well-meaning guy. And he always has been, and there's still a part of him that is just like, it's a guilty thing, and I'm like, dude, put that shit on a fucking shelf and throw it in the garbage for all I care. Like, you deserve to be here. Like, I want you to be here. Be careful. And now it's this ominous, like, now you're giving the warning, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I will tell you, be careful. And Austin's gonna be just fine. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He is an absolute assassin as a fucking musician. Not just a guitar player, but as a musician, songwriter, everything. The dude, like, we speak of X Factors. He's got it. And he's young and he's hungry and he's got it all. And he is the most well-meaning, polite, courteous human being that you'll ever fucking meet. And he's funny. Like, he's a fucking crack up. And I can't say enough good things about him. And he's earned every fucking word. So that brings us to now. Now, I have Yagikian, who doesn't really practice too much. We're looking to, but I have gone through every emotion you could possibly think of. I've gone through rage. I've gone through, like, there was a few days where I was like, you betrayed me, to this is a good thing, to I can't believe I wasted 9 years of my life. And then it's like, no, like, what was that thing? Like, it's better to have loved and lost and never loved at all.
Right.
Like, I learned so much about so many things, and things are special because they end.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely not a waste, man. I know how you can go through that emotion, and I understand. Like, we have different relationships that end, we have friendships that end, and it's just about what can you take away from it? How can you learn from it and move forward? And it's just about being grateful that you had the opportunity. And dude, it's like, you're still young. You still have so much ahead of you. Like, you're an amazing musician. And I understand, like, going through all those emotions, and you did the noble thing. Like, you could have, being fired from a band, or being broken up with, or whatever, fired from a job. It's like, especially if it's something that you've invested so much time and love and energy into, can go through so many emotions and want to absolutely, like, lose your shit in that moment. But
sure,
you held it together, and you did, you took the higher road. And, I see that in you, and, like, that's just who you are as a person. And then you pass the torch on, in a respectable, like, honest way. And, that's really, really, like, I admire that about you, because not everyone has that, dude. A lot of people would be bitter and freak out and lose their shit. But I definitely think, well, I know that you know, you have so much to offer the world, not only as a musician but as a person. Like, I see that in you. So
Thank you.
of course, man. And it's just on to the next chapter, dude.
Yeah, and you know, my girl and I are, you know, because now it's like, okay, you don't have to plan your life around this thing that will take you away. And through the years, I've wanted to, you know, I want to, I guess you can call it the American dream if you wanted to, but like, I love the woman I'm with, and I want to be a dad. I want to give my dad a grandson, you know, and you know, these are things over time that I've wanted. And you know, I was willing to make it work with the band and everything. And like, you know, I've talked to like I talked to Phil Demmel, who was in Machine Head. I've talked to, you know, a bunch of people who are dads. I'm like, how do you make it work, man? And like, just getting advice from them, because, you know, and King Diamond, funny enough, I got to sit down with King Diamond, and I was like, yeah, man, like, I want to be a dad. And he told me, who's, funny enough, the nicest guy. And like, I saw King Diamond in full garb. Speaking of memories, I saw King Diamond in full stage garb go up to his son, who was in like a stroller, and he's like, "Here comes the plane," and I'm like, "Am I watching this right now? Like, what
a visual!"
on? Exactly. And I'm like, and he's just like signing autographs, and like his kid's there, and I'm like, that's it. That's what it's all about right there. I'm like, from King Goddamn Diamond, that rules so much. He's the nicest guy ever, by the way. I love that guy. But yeah, man, and so, you know, I'm looking towards that, and I'm looking to fall in love with the instrument as it is again. And I'm proud to say that, like, my ego does not dictate that my name be in lights. You know, like, there was a lot of times throughout where, you know, I got to really look at it like, if it all ended right now, I could look back at everything and be like, yeah, I did all right. You know, like, I took a crazy leap that a lot of people tell me wasn't a good idea. And like, I know people who were great at sports, and then like, they're like, well, it's probably not going to make me any money, or like, they came up with some excuse, and now they're an accountant. You know what I mean? And like, that's great, but it's like, you now are living with that what if.
Right.
And with me, I don't have that what if. I can look back, and if I'm lucky enough to have a son, and he looks back at, you know, a young bearded picture of me swinging my head around in circles on stage, and be like, "That was you?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I took a chance, and, you know, it led me to your mom, and I could say that I did a thing or two, and then it ended, and, you know, I was as graceful as I could possibly be about this, including this, and I guess." You know, I know some of this will probably end up on the cutting room floor and everything, but I don't wish ill on them, and I don't hate them, because emotion takes energy, you know, and for whatever they do and whatever they choose to do, I just hope that they find a piece that works for their grand collective. And if that means that Exile has 3 or 4 more singers, then, you know, just to get what you need, that's fine. Have they deemed themselves completely unworthy of my interaction? Kind of. But I mean, if Tom called me right now and said, "Dude, I'm fucking going through it," I would listen. I wouldn't go out of my own way to talk to them, and I won't. But if I saw them, like, you know, there's no sense in like harboring the animosity, because it's not the bite of the snake that kills you, it's the venom.
Right.
You know, so you know, there's no spell castings, or there's no ill will or anything like that. Like, I have a lot of good memories with those guys. I have a lot of bad memories with those guys, but you know, ultimately, I think that things, though they hurt, I think that things ended the way that they should have ended, and I think everything that happened was meant to happen since the dawn of time, and this whole thing is going to be whatever I make of it, and I'm just happy that I still have the love for music, the love for my instrument, and that I didn't I didn't let myself succumb to the smoke and mirrors. You know, like I can look back and say like, no, you kept your head throughout the whole thing, and you were the weird guy who showed up with a fucking Stratocaster at a metal show. And with that, I mean, had I never gone through any of that, I never would have met you. I never would have met, so many people, and people from my town that I grew up in, like they go to work or they go to war. They don't chase their fucking dreams, or like they think, oh, this will make me money, and then they do that. And I'm not like ragging on that, but like that's great. But like I knew people who were like excelling at sports, and then they just got a desk job because it was the safe way.
Yeah.
And through the homeless this or like doing this or whatnot, like it certainly was not the safe way. I dared to do the impossible, and for my own intents and purposes, I made it work. So I guess to conclude my stance on that, like if there's something you love, utilize what you're good at to supplement what you actually want to do. Like your passions are the picture, but what you're good at, like what will, like your skills are the picture frame. If you follow just like what you're good at, like if you're lucky, you'll have them be the same thing, right? Like,
yeah.
like some people love carpentry. Carpentry is a very lucrative thing. So like your skills are the picture frame. That's what holds your picture together. But if you completely delve in your skills and then you ignore your passion, then you have an empty picture frame. It's a nice picture frame, no picture in it. However, if you do the opposite, and if you completely ignore what you're good at, and you're like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles and live in a car and just like be a musician, you have a nice picture, no frame to fucking hold it. So if you can find a median, if you can find a balance between the two and go like, with me, I'm good at driving trucks, I'm good with tools, I'm good with building things, I'm good with moving shit. It's like, okay, I can utilize that to pay for my guitar strings, pay for my guitars, pay for my rent, pay for this. That will supplement what I actually want to do. And so that's a big takeaway that I learned is like, it doesn't have to be other people's balance. It doesn't have to be other people's idea. It has to be yours, and that's the trick of life. It's finding what it is you love and finding what it is you want and what you're good at. And the only way I learned that you can do that is just to live. You got to go out and try everything.
Yeah, and you're a risk taker, and it's like to live life to its fullest and to become the person that you want to be and that like what you want to offer to the world. Yeah, it takes a bit of risk. Like you said, people from your town, they took the safe route, or they stayed in the family business or they went to war. But you decided to take a risk and follow your dreams, and it led you to this exact moment here. And you learned a lot along the way. You've met a lot of people, honed your craft, so it's not common, man. A lot of people, unfortunately, when they're sitting in their hospital bed, like towards the end of their life, like they regret not doing what they loved or taking those risks. And you could say that you did. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot more ahead of you, man. So yeah, I admire your journey, and I know like there's just going to be more great things in the future for you. So thank you so much for sharing all that, Ray. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, dude.
I think everyone's going to really love to learn more about you and that you shared your story with in Los Angeles in the music industry. And yeah, man, just great job. Like I said, all the shows I've seen, like, sounded killer, looked awesome. Like the recordings we did together, definitely a highlight, of my career. Like getting to, be in the studio with you and write those songs and record them and just hang out. It was a great memories for me. So I appreciate that.
Fantastic memories for me too, man.
Right on.
All the more special. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Anything that Our Dying World and Thrown into Exile do, support it. Go and listen to it. It's a lot of very good people there, very hardworking people, and I urge that you support and all that they do.
Right on, man. Cheers.